He turned back to Jenny, moving smoothly, lifting her once again with that same effortless strength and laying her flat on her back amidst the cushions. She barely had a second to register before he joined her, covering her body with his, moving between her thighs with even more urgency, now a raw focus. I knelt beside them, instinct taking over, wiping the sweat from Jenny's brow with trembling fingers, trailing light, reverent kisses along his shoulder, his chest, tasting the salt on his skin. Jenny's hand blindly searched for mine in the tangle of limbs. I found it, held it tight, anchoring her. She began to move with him again, meeting his thrusts faster this time, her body responding easily, instinctively, rising to meet him, take him deeper. She gripped the cushions beside her head, her breathing shifting again, becoming frantic, her muted cries growing stronger with each relentless moment, building and building, never stopping. I leaned closer to her ear and whispered, my voice a triumphant grin spreading across my face. Still think it was a bad idea. Welcome to the Heartstrings and Scars, where we unravel the untold stories of love, betrayal, and the life-changing lessons they leave behind. If you're new here, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. We promise you stories that will make you reflect, question, and maybe even see yourself in the characters we share. The whole thing had started with the heat, a thick, oppressive heat that clung to our little village on the forgotten Aegean island of Ethelos, turning the nights as sticky as the days. From our balcony, carved into the whitewashed stone above a tangle of alleyways, my sister Jenny and I kept noticing the same damn thing. Every woman who climbed the worn, sun-bleached steps to our neighbor Silas's apartment, tucked above the old ceramic shop, left hours later looking fundamentally altered. Their eyes were dazed, their movements slow, as if they'd just surfaced from a deep-sea dive. We'd whisper theories across the narrow gap separating our balconies, the air buzzing with a burning curiosity. We finally went over. The door swung inward, revealing him framed in the honey-colored light of his hallway. We knew. He wasn't surprised to see us. Not one bit. It had been late when it truly began, the kind of late where the island finally softens, the distant, mournful strum of a bouzouki, the only thing cutting through the stillness. I was about to retreat inside when I saw it through the tall, wavy glass of his window. His bedroom light, filtered through sheer linen curtains, flicked on. And he wasn't alone. A woman stood there, her silhouette sharp, already halfway undressed. Her dress slipped off her shoulders with a practiced ease. She leaned into him, her hands flat on his chest, while he just stood there, calm and utterly still, as if he commanded not just the room, but time itself. "Jenny," I called, my voice a low, urgent whisper. "You need to see this." She wandered out, a thin cotton sheet wrapped around her, her hair messy from dozing. "What?" she murmured, and I just pointed, my gaze fixed. "He's at it again." Through the wavering glass, we watched her back press against the peeling plaster wall, his hand braced beside her head. He leaned in, whispering something, and she went utterly quiet as he slowly, deliberately lifted her thigh, molding her body to his. Jenny covered her mouth. "Cora, we shouldn't be watching this." "And yet," I said, a slow grin spreading across my face, feeling the forbidden thrill. We stayed there, pressed to the railing, as he moved with an unnerving slowness, his expertise confirmed by her soft gasps. When he turned her around, she gripped the window frame, her knuckles white, as if it were the only thing keeping her anchored to this world. "I'm telling you," I whispered, leaning closer conspiratorially. They arrive confident, flirting openly on his doorstep, and they leave looking like they'll never forget whatever happened in that room. We watched her tense again, her mouth dropping open, jaw slack, eyes fluttering shut beneath his unseen touch. Finally, Jenny turned away, her face flushed. "Okay, that's enough." I didn't move. You can't tell me you're not a little curious. I scoffed quietly. That man is a walking enigma. A sculptor, maybe 45, who barely says a word to anyone, and somehow has every adventurous woman who crosses his path, leaving his place like they just stepped out of a fever dream. I saw her internal conflict. I want to know what that's like, I declared. I'm thinking now's a good time. I said casually. You were serious, she groaned, her eyes pleading. You cannot just knock on some man's door because you liked what you saw through his window. First of all, I said, grabbing my keys, it's what I've seen repeatedly. And yes, last night sealed it. A few minutes later, we were crossing the narrow street, the old cobblestones uneven under our sandals. My heart thudded with pure, buzzing anticipation. I knocked once on the heavy blue door. It creaked open almost immediately, as if he'd been waiting. I figured I might have company sooner or later, he said. He gestured to 2 heavy tumblers on his counter, one already filled with amber liquid and ice. He stepped aside, a silent invitation. The apartment was cool and still, filled with shutter-filtered light, and the rich smell of dark roast coffee, clay, and turpentine. He handed me the filled glass. You're not what I pictured, I said, taking a deliberate sip. A faint smile touched his lips. Neither are you. And what did you picture? People who watch that closely usually avoid eye contact the next day. You saw us. It's a window, Cora, he said simply, not a one-way mirror. I laughed, a sharp sound in the stillness. He dropped onto a worn leather couch, utterly relaxed, his gaze shifting to Jenny, who was still rooted by the door. No pressure. You get a lot of fake excuses knocking at your door, I asked, leaning on a nearby armchair. He looked up at me, his smile widening, slow and utterly sure of itself. I leave the window open for a reason. I didn't back away. I moved from the armchair and perched beside him on the couch, leaning against him, one leg draped casually across his lap, my fingers resting lightly, possessively, on his shoulder. He didn't flinch, just let his hand settle naturally on my thigh, warm and heavy. You're actually doing this, Jenny whispered, sharp with disbelief. Then go, I said simply, turning my attention back to Silas, my fingers tracing the line of his collarbone. Or stay and admit you're not just here because of me. He's a stranger, Cora. No, I corrected, my voice low. He's the man who has every woman on this island leaving his house like they've seen a god, including the one we watched together, spellbound just last night. I stood, walked over to Jenny, and took her hand. Her pulse jumped like a frantic bird. Don't lie to yourself about why you're still standing here, I murmured, and gently guided her forward, right in front of him. He looked up at her, his gaze calm, and leaned in slowly to kiss her. She let out a shaky, startled breath, then pulled back sharply, her face crimson. I didn't hesitate. I stepped in, brushing past her, and kissed him with full, hungry intent. His hands moved instantly to my hips, grounding me. When I leaned back, the air crackled. I reached for the hem of my thin cotton dress, and he mirrored the movement with his shirt. We slipped out of our clothes with purpose. I moved closer again, my hands flat on his warm, bare chest. He looked past me, his gaze finding Jenny, and offered her a hand, palm up. She hovered, frozen, clutching her discarded tunic like a shield. He didn't speak, just held her gaze, and nodded once, a silent command and permission all in one. She moved toward us, dreamlike but not resisting. He kissed her again, softly, lingeringly. This time, she didn't pull away. His hand slid into her hair, grounding her as the tunic dropped to the floor beside mine, her breath following in a soft sigh of surrender. I kept going, my mouth exploring his skin, while Jenny joined me, her touch at first tentative, then growing bolder with each deliberate movement he made in response. When his head tipped back, a low sound escaping him, I knew we were finally chipping away at his control. "Both of you," he spoke, his voice steady. "Up." We stood. He slid further back into the deep couch, an invitation. I climbed onto him without pause, straddling him, taking him deep inside me as his lips found my neck. His movements were deliberate, focused, devastatingly skilled. I tilted my head back, losing myself in the sensation. Jenny lowered herself beside us, her mouth finding him where I'd left off. We moved together, an instinctive dance fueled by shared fascination. Then Jenny inhaled sharply. He touched her shoulder, encouraging her up with a murmur. She stood, unsteady, and let him guide her onto his lap, facing him. I slid off smoothly, giving them space, my hand lingering on her spine as she settled above him, skin sliding against skin. Her eyes closed as she found her rhythm, her breath turning ragged, her focus locked on him. Then, suddenly, her body tensed, her head fell back, her spine arching in the silent, irrefutable evidence of her release. He held her a moment longer, then stood effortlessly, carrying her to the pile of discarded clothes and lowering her with surprising care. Then he turned back to me. I was already waiting, ready, braced against the arm of the couch, breath shallow with anticipation. He stepped up close behind me, the heat radiating from his body, and took hold of my hips, guiding us into a fierce, instant rhythm. Jenny watched us through dazed eyes. I managed a shaky smile at her, a shared acknowledgement before the pressure intensified. I gasped, grabbing the cool leather for balance. He knew exactly how to keep me suspended on that unbearable edge. When he angled himself just right, hitting a place deep inside, my back arched, and everything burst forward, shaking through me in violent waves. He didn't slow. If anything, unbelievably, he was just getting started. He turned back to Jenny, moving smoothly, lifting her once again with that same effortless strength and laying her flat on her back amidst the cushions. She barely had a second to register before he joined her, covering her body with his, moving between her thighs with even more urgency now, a raw focus. I knelt beside them, instinct taking over, wiping the sweat from Jenny's brow with trembling fingers, trailing light, reverent kisses along his shoulder, his chest, tasting the salt on his skin. Jenny's hand blindly searched for mine in the tangle of limbs. I found it, held it tight, anchoring her. She began to move with him again, meeting his thrusts faster this time, her body responding easily, instinctively, rising to meet him, take him deeper. She gripped the cushions beside her head, her breathing shifting again, becoming frantic, her muted cries growing stronger with each relentless moment, building and building, never stopping. I watched her closely, watched him, completely amazed. He just kept going, focused, fierce, somehow tireless. His stamina didn't just impress. It utterly overwhelmed. It felt impossible, like he could keep going forever. And some days, part of me believed he might. At long, long last, he let out a final, quiet, ragged breath against her neck, his powerful body going still as he reached his own limit. Jenny lay completely still beneath him, boneless, chest heaving, eyes closed, looking as if she had been sculpted from marble and left to bask in the afterglow. The thick, humid air of the room seemed to settle around us, heavy and silent, but for the sound of our breathing. He didn't move for a long moment, his weight a warm, solid presence on her, as if a storm had finally passed, leaving a profound and exhausted peace in its wake. I curled up beside them on the floor, my own body still buzzing, humming with the aftershocks of my own release. I gently brushed the damp strands of dark hair from Jenny's forehead, her skin glowing in the soft, shuttered light. She looked like all the other women, we had watched from our balcony. Utterly undone, fundamentally rearranged, a visitor to a world she never knew existed until now. But seeing it this close, feeling the residual energy in the room, I finally understood. It wasn't just physical, it was something else entirely, something sacred and profane all at once. Then I leaned closer to her ear, my lips almost touching her skin, and whispered, my voice a triumphant grin spreading across my face. Still think it was a bad idea. She didn't open her eyes, but the faintest hint of a smile touched her lips as she let out a long, slow sigh of pure surrender.